So, show and tell time. I have had this book, Poetry for Pleasure, since 2013. Story behind this book is that I went on I went on exchange uh, on the fall semester of 2013 from my university, Ateneo de Manila, to the University of Victoria, or UVic, in Victoria, Canada. So, one of those events I stumbled into on campus was a sale from the library, and it was very unique in that instead of selling books by the book, they sold by the box. So they had these boxes on hand, and these cardboard boxes, and it's $20 per box, and it was up to you to uh, to basically fit as many books as you want. Now, I bought a lot, like at least 10 to 20 books that day, and like I had a really tough time hanging on to the box on the bus back home. It was really heavy. There were a lot of books. Now, looking at my collection now, this little library section here in my room, I don't have them all. I don't even remember most of them. But I do have like a few that I still have that I haven't read. I am pretty sure that I haven't even finished one of the books um in that collection. Now, what's interesting of this book is it really jumped out at me. Poetry for Pleasure. I was always into poetry in high school. I it's old, like yellowed pages, hardbound. It was up to that point the biggest book of poems that I saw, and it really intrigued me. And then on the spine, it says, selected and arranged by the editors of Hallmark Cards Inc. So I assumed wrongly that these were all Hallmark poems, but they're not. They're a collection made by the editors, and yeah, it's October. Uh, Normally, in the internet parlance, it's Inktober, where where artists take the opportunity to flex and practice, um, where they get to draw every day. And then I saw a post on the Independent Creative and Advertising about how it's also Voxtober, where voice actors go around and read, I think it was poems, one a day. And I'm pretty late. It's 3 a.m. mid October, October 18, 2019. And I was planning to like just shotgun record 18 poems tonight, but I think I'll just start this podcast by reading this book. Like I'm going to read the intro and a couple of poems to start, and then we'll see where it goes from here. It's I was thinking of releasing this as a podcast, but not really. Maybe not so ASMR video, but it's more it's less for an audience and more for me, just so I can talk, practice public speaking, um, and exercise my voice muscles because I'm usually very quiet every day, very introverted, and yeah, like most people don't like the sound of their own voices, and this is my opportunity to just get used to hearing myself, not just in my head, but out loud. So what's interesting about this book is that opening it up, it's first edition published in 1960. Now, like, it really brings to mind how, like, the journey, where has this book been, you know? Like, what's the journey of each particular book? How many hands did this pass through? How many people have these poems inspired? How many countries has it been to, you know? In 1960, this book, its pages, its leaves might have been yellowed. It's 4 years older than my dad, so it's very old. It's how old is this? 20 almost it's 2019, 2020. So it's 50, almost 60 years old now. Wow. It's pretty beautiful. You open it and it's Corinthian hills, a bird flying over a nice vista, a view of the sea or the lake, Corinthian pillars, and a dove. First edition, published in 1960 by the Doubleday and Company Inc., Garden City, New York. So this is the very short publisher page. I don't think they had standards like as these days. And then they have pages of trying to find the copyright of each individual poem. So the compilers and the publisher have made every effort to trace the ownership of all copyrighted poems, while expressing regret for any error unintentionally made. The publisher will be pleased to make the necessary correction in future editions of this book. Now, I'm not sure how many editions this has. So there's a lot of pages of just copyright poems. 17. Okay, 18 pages. Okay, so I'm going to read the acknowledgements. This book is the product of much work by many persons. Thanks are due, first of all, to the hundreds of Hallmark dealers and employees who suggested poems for inclusion. The Kansas City Public Library and the University of Kansas City Library provided considerable assistance in locating books and poems. Mr. Richard B. Seelock and Miss Della Kortner of the Kansas City Public Library were particularly helpful. The manuscript was prepared under the general editorial direction of Webster Scott, Webster Schott, Maurice Nugent, Carl Goller, and Catherine Davis. Portions of the manuscript were typed by Louise Van Vuren, Ronalie Redford, Laura Deal, Orlean Eckhoff, Sandra Jensen, Eileen Neighbors, Judy Sears, Mary Margaret Gentry, and Jane Turner. All or part of the manuscript was read by Peter Seymour, Elliot Valentine, Arnold Shapiro, and Ray Watson. Valuable suggestions about the manuscript were made by Paul Engel of the State University of Iowa, Carl Shapiro of the University of Nebraska, and Thorpe Menn and Dwight Pennington of the Kansas City Star. Jeanette Lee supervised the designing of the jacket and papers and illustrations. The dove. The jacket and end papers were designed by Norman Engler. The jacket photograph is by William B. Breyer, M.D. The illustrations are the work of Walter Schwartz, Jim Hamill, and Frank Zaz. The book was designed by Joseph P. Askerl. Joe Kipp offered continuously good advice about the whole project. Robert V. Breen of Carl Bayer and Associates was particularly helpful in the planning of the book. And the counsel and enthusiasm of Sam Vaughn of Doubleday and Company and Co. were essential to the successful completion of the book. Now that was a mouthful. Already struggling with the names, pronunciations. I don't know if these people are still alive. They might have been very tenured professionals back in the day, and this was in the 60s already. I don't know if fun to think, but just putting their names out there, there are millions, well, I don't know if millions, but there are thousands of books that we will never get to read, and they're the product of a lot of hard work of people that most of us will never even hear about. So it's a nice sentiment to revive their names again. So I think those were the acknowledgements, and this is what the table of contents describe as I think these are like essays. They're not the foreword necessarily, but like an intro essay of intro to poetry. I don't know, let's read it. And I think I'll end the video after this first essay. Several months ago, Doubleday and Company asked us whether we would like to gather a group of poems together in a book. Their reasons were that Hallmark had worked a long time in a field which demands attention to both good taste and clear communication, and that our efforts with television and fine art suggested we might be able to come up with a book which would be both popular and worthwhile. We liked this idea. So, yeah, the 60s, television and fine art. And so yeah, it really brings to mind, was this book popular back then? When I was a young man in a small bookstore back in Nebraska in the early 1900s, it would have been unheard of for a business organization to be involved in assembling an anthology of poetry. But we live in different times now, and I take this book to be a healthy sign of the new interest in everything in the arts in the United States today. We've grown up in our ability to appreciate the things that make life worth living. There are many reasons why. Today, you can hear great symphonies, great statesmen, and great poets on long playing records. In just a few hours from New York or Kansas City, you can fly to the Mayan ruins in Guatemala or the beautiful old countryside in Britain. You can see splendid reproductions of the world's great paintings in any number of magazines. Through television, you can acquaint yourself with ways of life altogether different from your own. All these and many others have had a tremendous uplifting effect on public taste. Now, it's really refreshing to see this man. I think it was the dude from Nebraska. Oh no, it's a woman. It's really interesting to see how this new media of television and magazines and like in the 60s, these were all new and fresh and exciting, and how like the internet, of how these new media equals communication, far-reaching implications, and with like the world at their fingertips, they were able to access these beautiful works of art. And so, like, in celebration of that, here, get this collection of poetry to add to the zeitgeist. It's really nice. It's really cool. And it's funny how America, public taste, uplifting, and this internet culture of inundated with millennial Gen Z memes, its own form of media and communicating ideas. So that's a whole other discussion for another time. Taste is becoming more refined. Our ability to appreciate the finer things in life has increased in every respect. Personally, I have seen these gradual changes in taste during a half century of watching the American public improve its taste from year to year in the selection of greeting cards. Okay. I am amazed when I look back 10 years at the cards people preferred then. And when I look back 20 years, I am shocked. At Hallmark, we see new evidence of the improvement in taste every year. It is accelerating, improving faster all the time. I just don't agree with the talk I sometimes hear about the American public having the mind of a 12-year-old. Our people have greater capabilities than that. They will live up to what you expect of them. Furthermore, the 12-year-old mind today is quite a mind. The 12-year-old of today would have been a match for some of the 20-year-olds when I was a young man. Oh, so it's a man. Sorry. You'd understand it a bit. We know there is a widespread public appreciation for fine writing and fine acting in television. Our own broadcasts have proved this. We've found that just about everyone likes Shakespeare's plays when they are well done, not just highbrows and college professors, but the man in the street and the family in the living room. Public interest in serious poetry seems to be growing too. We've published several great poets of the past on Hallmark cards, Ah, Wordsworth, Shakespeare, Tennyson, Fitzgerald, as well as a number of fine contemporary poets. Pasternak, MacLeish, Engel, and Williams. They sell. So, yeah, I thought it was a woman, but it's actually a man because it this is an introduction written by the president of Hallmark, who's from Kansas, grew up in Nebraska. But yeah, it's very interesting to see how um yeah, I thought this was just like a general anthology of poems, but turns out that, well, unlike the Hallmark cards of today, where sometimes it's like very short, um, they used to print like Shakespeare, Tennyson, Fitzgerald. I haven't even read the work of Fitzgerald. I think, like, what type of poems would what type of Hallmark cards would be published that would have the work of like a Tennyson or a Fitzgerald? I would see a Shakespeare for Valentine's. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? But yeah, it's really cool to see how earnest this compilation is, like how they see that even back then in the 60s, how the current generation has the mind of a 12-year-old, but there are people who still believe, like, don't sell this generation short. They're much more it would have been a match for some of the 20-year-olds when I was a young man. So, last paragraph. This collection of poems is designed to be a pleasure to read over a long period of time. True, it expects something from you in return. It expects your attention, but it will reward you for your effort and time. When the job of selecting and organizing the poems in this book was finished, I took the manuscript home and read it. I found a lot of pleasure, some thrills, and even inspiration in these poems. I hope and believe you will too. Joyce C. Hall, President, Hallmark Cards, Inc., Kansas City, Missouri, June 1960. Now, that's very interesting. Like, the words of this Joyce Hall, the former president of Hallmark Cards, Inc. So yeah. Let's end this video on that note. Even though I'll probably record the next video right after this one, just to cut it up, for time. So yeah, that's very interesting. I'm pretty sure, this book should be like enjoyed over a period of time. I think this is a good exercise. Start this VO podcast or this series. Oh, it's still recording. Sorry, my laptop fell asleep on me. Anyway, am I that boring? So yeah. Where was I? I don't know if this will still be the format, or I'll just stop in the middle of reading to give my thoughts, or finish a poem and then give my thoughts. We'll see. We'll work it out. I think it was just for this because it's a intro. We're discovering it as this book goes along, so we'll see. So yeah, I don't think I'll edit. I say this now. Watch when we get to the 50th poem, and there'll be intro music and an intro like "What's up? Hi guys." And there will be sponsors like HelloFresh, Raycon, Skillshare, Squarespace, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know who's gonna watch this. I don't even know if I'll put this in public ever. But if it goes public, hello. My name, oh yeah, my name is Jiggy. I am 25 years old, from the Philippines. Been introverted most of my life. Wanted to get into VO, voice acting. Hence, I bought this kinda expensive microphone like 3 years ago, and I haven't used it much. So here I am, making this microphone work, getting my money's worth, and trying to improve my speaking skills, and trying to, get a bit more cultured, as Joyce Hall wants the 60s Americana to be more educated and enjoy a bit more serious art form. So yeah, this is me broadcasting my thoughts out into the universe. See you soon.